For the fourth year in a row, Google has established a bit of a recurring pattern with its Pixel phone lineup. Generally, that means a fall flagship duo of devices followed by a summertime A-series release. What started with the Pixel 3a has turned into an expected and successful yearly update to this tick-tock sort of pattern, and with this year's Pixel 6a, I think Google has put together their best mid-range Pixel to date. Let's talk about why. Google has gone on record this year stating that the Pixel 6 lineup has surpassed all other Pixel sales, even sharing the fact that the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro have sold more units than the Pixel 4 and 5 combined. While there have been some nagging bugs here and there, the general consensus from Pixel 6 owners is that they really love their phones, and there's a lot about that overall Pixel 6 experience that comes along for the ride on this cheaper $449 Pixel 6a. Now, there are trade-offs, sure, but the fun of owning a Pixel phone comes largely from the software experience. Google's always tried to make the Pixel software unique among the larger Android ecosystem, and though I tend to stray off a couple times a year to a couple different phones, I always come back to Pixel. And it's not because of some hardware gimmick or some super unique feature. Instead, it's really just the entire user experience that brings me back, and that's a really good thing to have in your back pocket as a company that makes mid-range phones. Because to get a phone down to this sort of price, companies like Google have to make cuts with hardware. Things are downgraded, materials aren't always as nice, and sacrifices are just expected. That's definitely the case on the Pixel 6a, but as you'll see pretty quickly, it doesn't really degrade the Pixel software experience. There's no denying the Google DNA in this phone, and with that DNA being any Pixel phone's greatest strength, the Pixel 6a does well to lean all the way into that fact. So let's start out by talking about those cut corners. At a glance, the Pixel 6a is definitely oozing the latest Pixel vibe. So where did Google save some money? Well, first up, with a smaller 6.1-inch 60Hz OLED display. It's the first place you'll see some cost savings. And it doesn't mean it's a bad panel, I mean, not by a long shot, but it isn't the same quality you're going to get on something like the Pixel 6 Pro. It gets plenty bright, has great viewing angles, and the colors look fantastic. But if you're coming from a high refresh rate phone like the Pixel 6 with its 90Hz or the Pixel 6 Pro with its 120Hz display, you'll immediately see and feel a difference. On the outside, the other notable difference comes in the form of what Google is calling a 3D thermoformed composite back. But if I didn't tell you about that, I doubt you'd even pick up on the fact that the entire backside of this phone is plastic. Yeah, I said it. And you can call it what you want, but thermoform composite or polycarbonate or whatever, it's plastic. But it's a great feeling plastic. When I unboxed it at first, I actually forgot about the fact that the whole backplate wasn't glass. And when I did finally remember, I really had to tap around on it quite a bit to convince myself that, yeah, this isn't glass. In a case, you'll never know otherwise anyway, so if this saves some money and keeps the price down, I think a plastic back on a phone is a brilliant choice. And while we're talking about the backside of this phone, let's quickly touch on those color options. Google's always been good about putting together great colors for Pixel phones, and the Pixel 6a is no exception. There's the simple gray and white combo, it's called chalk, and then there's the black and dark gray combo called charcoal, but the best of the bunch by far is sage, and it's this subtle earthy green tone that looks great in photos but looks even better in person. I've already found myself wishing this colorway was on my Pixel 6 Pro. The plastic, however, is limited to just the back plate though, and the side rails are still made of the same metal that graces the Pixel 6. The matte finish looks great, and just like on the Pixel 6, this material on the edges with the colorful colors around back, it just screams Google and screams Pixel. And that metal frame extends around the camera hump, which is far less pronounced than what we see on the higher priced Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro. It's not completely flush, but it's really close, and I just love the way this looks. Yeah, the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro need that larger hump for bigger camera hardware, but I love the clean look of the 6a's camera module, and even if it means it comes with the older Pixel camera setup. And what is that setup, you might be asking? Well, if you've ever encountered a Pixel phone over the last few years, you know what we're working with here. It's a 12.2 megapixel main shooter, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then an 8 megapixel selfie cam on the front. It's pretty similar to what we've had in other phones like the Pixel 5, and in real world use that means it's kind of tough to distinguish Pixel 6a photos from those taken with something like the Pixel 6 Pro. Now the focal lengths are a little different, so up close objects will make for different end results, with the Pixel 6 Pro showing a bit more shallow depth of field, but generally speaking, I've had a real tough time telling photos apart between all three of these Pixel phones. Again, it comes down to software for most of these things, and the Pixel 6a has the same stuff running on it as the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro do. The final hardware downgrades we'll talk about in the 6a come from the inside, but compared to the entry-level version of both the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, there's really only one difference, and that's RAM. All three of these phones start out with 128 gigs of storage, but the Pixel 6a doesn't get an upgrade option. It also ships with 6 gigs of RAM versus the 8 gigs in the Pixel 6 and 12 gigs in the Pixel 6 Pro. And while on paper this should translate to less capable multitasking, I don't think you'll have too much trouble unless you're actively trying to cap out that RAM. So that's basically it for the downgrades. But what about all the things this Pixel does just like its bigger, more expensive siblings? Most importantly, it has the exact same Tensor SoC inside, and that means it's the same performance we enjoy on the flagship Pixels. Of all the things Google's doing with this year's A series phone, this might be the biggest change. No longer is the mid-range Pixel outfitted with some slower processor. Instead, things are just as snappy as you would expect from a high-end flagship, and that makes using the Pixel 6a feel quite similar to the other two Pixel 6 options. Oh, and it carries the same 5G connectivity options as the Pixel 6 as well, so sub-6 5G is available if your carrier supports it. The standard Pixel software experience is here too, with no caveats or considerations, and it made me feel right at home once I was all logged in and set up. And that means things like Google's Material You design, Google Assistant voice calling features, Live Translate, Recorder, Magic Eraser, the new Camouflage feature, Real Tone, Live HDR Plus video, adaptive battery charging, car crash detection, quick phrases, and countless other Pixel-specific features are all along for the ride. Nothing is left out because the processor running the show is the same as we have in the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro. While there was talk of the fingerprint scanner being at least different from the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, I don't really see much difference. It works perfectly fine, but so does the sensor on my Pixel 6 Pro these days, so I'm not really sure what the technical changes are. I do remember my Pixel 6 being pretty bad at unlocking with my thumbprint, so it's definitely better than that experience, but if you're looking for some wildly fast upgrade over what the Pixel 6 Pro offers in this space, you'll probably be let down. Either way, biometrics work really well, and they didn't get in the way at all. The last thing I'll say about this phone is that I'm very impressed by the haptics and the speakers on board. Google could have skimped on both, but instead chose to keep what feels like the same setup we have on the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro. I don't know that for a fact, but the speakers sound really similar to the Pixel 6, and the haptics feel identical to the Pixel 6 Pro. That's a really good combo on a phone in this price range, and though things like haptic motors don't make big headlines, they do change the perception, feel, and experience when you're using a phone. The Pixel 6a nails both. I haven't used the device long enough for Google to really hone in my adaptive battery settings, so I'm going to withhold judgment there. Now, that being said, with a battery nearly the same size as the Pixel 6 and a smaller, lower refresh rate screen, this thing should be great on a single charge. As we're putting this video together, I had 58% on my battery, and the Pixel 6a is estimating about 10 hours still remain. At 4,410 milliamp hours, I'd buy that battery life estimation and feel confident that it's going to get you easily through a full and busy day. Though wireless charging isn't included, the Pixel 6a still accepts rapid charge and tops off as fast as the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro, which is to say decently fast, but not as fast as something like a OnePlus phone by any stretch of the imagination. Going from 50% to 100%, the Pixel 6a tells me it's going to take about an hour on rapid charge. It's not terribly slow, but it won't win any awards for charging speeds either. So, in the end, should you buy this phone? If you're after the Pixel experience and don't want to drop $600 or $900 on your phone, Absolutely. If you want the Pixel experience on a smaller phone, this is going to get you there. But I'm not a phone reviewer, so I can't definitively say that this $449 phone is better than competing devices. I can't say it's faster on paper, it has better or worse screen, or it's the superior camera when compared with other phones in this price range. But I don't think I need to. In the end, those even considering this phone are wanting the Pixel experience, and the Pixel 6a delivers it. That much I can assure you of, and if a 60Hz screen or the 6.1-inch diagonal measure doesn't turn you off, I'd say you'll absolutely love this phone if you've been eyeballing a Pixel. While it's not really my cup of tea, I like big phones with high refresh rates, I think this Pixel will sell like crazy and make a lot of new Pixel users very happy. It's a fantastic Pixel to add to the lineup, and my hope is the price point and the loaded software feature set get more people to give Google's phone a try. But guys, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, head down there, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to ring the notification bell as well if you'd like to be alerted when we make future videos just like this one. Until next time, we'll see you.